2018 Mazda CX-3 Review. The good points of Mazda CX-3. Sharp styling. Enjoyable they are driving. Generous equipment list. Interesting interior. The bad points of Mazda CX-3. Cramped rear seats. Small boot on higher spec models. Rear visibility restricted. Expensive to obtain. The use of the compact crossover shows few warning signs of relenting, and that's why the Mazda CX-3 SUV exists among a rapidly growing quantity of cars on this style. The Nissan Juke kicked things with wacky looks, an increased driving position and compact car practicalities, for example being an easy task to maneuver around town. Since the Juke's launch, a variety of rivals have sprouted, the CX-3 being the most attractive. However, with new competition such as the Kia Stonic, Hyundai Kona and refreshed Renault Captur, not forgetting the Peugeot 2008 and Vauxhall Crossland X, it doesn't contain it all sewn up at this time. We ran one being a long-termer. Watch more here. Mazda CX-3 petrol and diesel engines. Mazda has continued its Skyactiv program of lightness and efficiency using the CX-3 and, for petrol engines at the very least, has shied far from turbocharged downsizing, instead believing larger, naturally aspirated motors are definitely the way to go. With 120 horsepower, the entry-level 2.0-liter Skyactiv petrol unit is suited with a 6-speed manual gearbox as standard, which has a 6-speed automatic recommended, sending capability to the front wheels. Economy and CO2 emissions are rated at 47.9 miles per gallon and 137 GkM to the manual, 48.7 miles per gallon and 136 GkM with the automatic. Choose the CX-3 in Sport Nav trim and you'll also order it with 4-wheel drive as well as a more powerful version on the 2.0-liter petrol motor. Power jumps to 150 horsepower, but efficiency figures with the manual in the addition are worse at 44.1 miles per gallon and 150 GkM. Cheaper running costs come courtesy from the 1.5-liter Skyactiv turbocharged diesel, producing just 105 horsepower, although at 270 Nm, peak torque is 66 Nm more than the petrol offerings. Manual versions serve up 70.6 miles per gallon and easily 105 GkM of CO2, while 4-wheel drive brings it into 60.1 miles per gallon and CO2 approximately 123 GkM. An automatic gearbox is obtainable with 4-wheel drive, returning around 54.3 miles per gallon and 136 GkM of CO2. Again, 4-wheel drive models are simply available in range-topping Sport Nav trim. Mazda CX-3 trim level choices. The familiar Mazda trim hierarchy of Nav, Cell Nav and Sport Nav are used on the CX-3, as well as being a range-topping GT Sport trim that can be obtained in limited numbers. Equipment levels are generous. Wonderful CX-3 models getting alloy wheels, SatNav, aircon, electric windows, DAB radio, Bluetooth, cruise control, keyless ignition plus a 7.0-inch color multimedia screen as standard. Choosing Incel Nav adds front fog lights, rear parking sensors, heated front seats, climate control, lane departure warning system and darkened rear privacy glass. Sport Nav upgrades the 16-inch alloy wheels to 18 inches, together with interior is spruced with half leatherette sports seats. Adaptive LED headlights, a Bose stereo, reversing camera, keyless entry and also a head-up display complete the image. Prices do start more than many of its competitors. Nevertheless, the CX-3 is well equipped along with a pleasure-driven automobile with a robust cabin. The verdict. The Mazda CX-3 SUV was one in the later entries to your compact crossover class. However, it's a credible option with sharp styling, a unique and well-equipped interior, plus it's one on the best they are driving. It's under no circumstances the most practical, nor the lowest priced. Nevertheless, it should be on the list as it'll satisfy most customers' needs without fuss. There are an abundance of engine, gearbox and trim options to select. Watch the rest from the Mazda CX-3 review if it's really worth premium over its competitors. Choice of 2 petrols and another diesel. Front and 4-wheel drive available. No turbocharged petrols here. Choosing just which engine you need to maximize Mazda CX-3 performance isn't a protracted one because there are just 3 engines available, 1 diesel and a couple of petrols. After you've selected that, it's approximately you whether you'd want to change gears yourself or enable the automatic gearbox practice it for you. Sky-active petrol engines. Going against contemporary convention, Mazda has plowed a furrow having a right-sizing program that sees it eschew smaller turbocharged units, which in turn promise much written but neglect to deliver in person. Fuel economy figures, put simply. Which is the reason, instead with the usual turbocharged petrol engines much like the kind you'll discover in its rivals, the CX-3 provides the choice of 2 naturally aspirated 2.0-liter units. Essentially precisely the same engine, just with different power outputs. This 2.0-liter 4-cylinder can be acquired with either 120 horsepower or 150 horsepower and a similar 204 Nm of torque. With a manual gearbox and front-wheel drive, the 120 horsepower model completes the 0.62 mph sprint in 9 seconds flat. Add the 6-speed automatic gearbox to that plus the time slows by 0.9 seconds. If you need 4-wheel drive, you'll need to acquire the more robust 150 horsepower model, only available having a manual transmission, which manages a similar benchmark sprint in 8.7 seconds. That tiny difference arrives out for the road, with little extra performance to be had. The 120 horsepower example feels plenty to get a car on this type, and allied to your excellent chassis is merely enough to possess fun, assuming your car or truck isn't crammed stuffed with your peacefully sleeping children. That's smooth. Thrilled to rev to 6,000 revolutions per minute in the bid to produce its peak power figure, you'll enjoy working both it as well as the slickly engineered 6-speed manual gearbox to get probably the most from it. However, if you're regularly within the motorway or around hills, it might not be the best suited option. This is where the diesel will come in. Sky-active diesel engine. Unlike while using petrol engines, you could have the sole 1.5-liter diesel with front and 4-wheel drive, in addition to either the 6-speed automatic or manual gearboxes, according to what trim level you ultimately choose. There's 105 horsepower and 270 Nm of torque offered, rogues from just 1,600 revolutions per minute. That does tail off by 2,500 revolutions per minute. However, it never feels quite as narrowed about the road, which has a relatively linear SP watch of power and smooth, refined delivery. That extra torque in the pit rolls really also comes in handy for overtaking maneuvers or making your way up hills, which diesel is remarkably just like a petrol to operate a vehicle. It's free revving and also smooth rolling around in its power delivery. Allowed letting wheel drive manual model sprints from 0.62 mph in 10.1 seconds, as the 4-wheel drive adds 0.4 of a second to that particular time. Going with the 4-wheel drive automatic means a 0.62 mph quote of 11.9 seconds. manual and automatic gearboxes. Both the manual and auto gearboxes are 6-speed units, plus the manual is really a particular delight to make use of with slick, mechanical and precise shifts. Combined together with the excellent steering, well-weighted and perfectly placed pedals, it will help make the CX-3 this kind of thrill-driving automobile. There's nothing much wrong with all the auto either. However, the paddles fitted behind the steering wheel from the Sport Nav model may go through a little incongruous. It'll be approximately you regardless of if the extra cash needed for this self-shifter is worth it. The CX-3 handles wonderfully. Feels similar to a small hatchback. Ride is comprised and steering direct. It might appear to be a conventional small crossover, similar to its Nissan Juke rival. Even so, the Mazda CX-3 feels as though a much more quality product compared to Sunderland-built model when you drive it. Body control is extremely impressive, with little when it comes to roll and other movement under extreme braking or accelerating. In fact, the Mazda CX-3's handling is rather stable, and were it not for your slightly higher seating position, you may fool yourself into piloting something more akin to a normal hatchback. There's a great deal of traction from the leading, especially having a solid effectiveness against understeer and many feedback throughout the feels 3-spoke controls. Mazda's vectoring control system plays a component here, which, simply speaking, helps make the CX-3 tuck into corners in a very more eager, agile fashion. Placing your vehicle accurately by having a bend isn't trouble in any respect, plus the CX-3 is definitely rather good fun to push in a spirited manner. You don't even have to select the sport trim, having its larger 18-inch versus 16-inch alloy wheels and tires, since the Say and Sell models exhibit precisely the same levels of control and grip. Interior lifted straight in the Mazda 2. Plenty of adjustment in seating position. Dashboard is interesting and an easy task to use. Almost identical to your Mazda 2. Save for just a slightly higher seating position, the cabin in the Mazda CX-3 is neatly made with some real visual flair and quality materials. The symmetrical flanking in the driver's instrument binnacle through the round air vents can make it feel heavily focused about the person in control on the vehicle. Opt for your Sport or Sport Nav models, and that's emphasized with the centrally placed rev counter, unlike smaller, offset, digital display present in Say or Sell trim, that is more reminiscent of the sports car over a junior family crossover. The neat leather-wrapped 3-spoke controls, featuring useful audio and infotainment controls, feels great up to you too. The swath of cloth, running on the passenger's left-hand air vent for the drivers, helps make the cabin feel wider. Laptop or computer really is, and adds a visual interest, especially on models fitted with optional leather look upholstery. The driving position is a lot like a Mazda 2, though it's set 50 mm higher. Thanks to reach and rake adjustment for your steering wheel in addition to height adjustment for your driver's seat, it's simple to find your selected setting. Seats on Sport Nav models are particularly comfortable and supportive. That is great if you are considering spending a while behind the wheel. Choose Unsell or Hire, and the top seats are heated. As you move, the Sport Nav models come using a head-up display which is effective but looks slightly incongruous sat atop the binnacle using a fold-out perspex screen to project info on. It's crisp and clear to watch, though. Comfort levels high even on Sport Nav models. Easy to acquire, comfy and acquire used towards the interior. Space could be cramped for many. If Mazda CX-3 comfort is usually a priority in your case and you're not desperate for your highest spec CX-3, then might we propose you stick using the Say or Sell trim levels. The ride is a lot more compliant than Sport Nav and its particular attractive 18-inch wheels. However, Even this rides well above the majority of surfaces. The 16-inch alloy wheels fitted towards the say or sell models encourage the Awachi taut and firm CX-3 to manage lumps and bumps very effectively. You'll also notice slightly less road roar while using smaller wheels. And the rest on the experience is every bit as pleasing, with little or no wind noise within the move. The sole disturbance originates from around the large door mirrors. The seats offer a good amount of adjustment, along with the reach and rake leader, while cell models and above gain heated front seats and climate control as standard, excellent for cold winter mornings. Sport Nav models include a heated tire as standard. Only taller rear passengers may find the bench definitely not comfortable, since there's a small shortage of legroom, though too few to present a problem on the children who are more likely to frequent it. Passengers in CX-3s with darkened rear windows might find it slightly claustrophobic from the back, as being the apertures are small. All models well specified. Mid-range and on top of the ones to consider. Few options to incorporate at extra expense. Navigating the CX-3's trim structure can be a very easy task, pursuing the usual Mazda succession of Say Nav, Cell Nav, Sport Nav plus the limited run GT Sport. Standard Mazda CX-3 SUV equipment. Start while using entry-level Say Nav, and standard equipment levels are ample. 16-inch alloy wheels. Twin exhausts. Leather leader and grunt cob. 7.0-inch color touchscreen with sat-nav, DAB radio and Bluetooth. Air conditioning. Keyless ignition. Electric windows all-round. Power folding door mirrors. Step nearly cell nav to feature. Rear parking sensors. Automatic lights and wipers. Climate control. Privacy glass. Autonomous emergency braking and lane departure warning. Sport Nav ups the ante even more, with 18-inch alloy wheels. LED daytime running lights, with adaptive front LED headlamps. Reversing camera. Half cloth, half leatherette upholstery. Keyless entry. Head-up display. Bose multi-channel surround sound system. GT Sport builds on Sport Nav, using a different alloy wheel design, a shape kit and Napa leather trim inside. Optional Mazda CX-3 SUV extras. The report on optional extras available about the CX-3 isn't too extensive, but there are a few useful additions available. Various metallic and pearlescent colors are entirely on all models, nonetheless it's only Sport Nav where one can add extra kit in your CX-3. Options include half cream leather, half black suede upholstery with electric seat adjustment on petrol models. There's also the safety pack, consisting of adaptive LED headlamps, blind spot monitoring and rear cross-traffic alert, rear city brake support and traffic sign recognition. Lots of normal safety kit. More is usually added for extra expense. 4 stars from Euro NCAP. The Mazda CX-3 may be rewarded 4 stars by Euro NCAP, that is in line together with the 2 Super Mini, that it shares the majority of its components. As standard, the CX-3 has 6 airbags, tire pressure monitoring, traction control and electronic stability control together with emergency stop signaling that may rapidly flash the indicators to alert other road users for a situation. There's additionally a Thatcham Cat 1 alarm and immobilizer attached to all CX-3s, and people with children will appreciate the ISOFIX fittings within the outer rear seats and solution to turn off leading passenger seat airbag. Choose the Cell or Sport Nav model so you gain the firm's smart city brake support and lane departure warning system, while aforementioned also carries a head-up display to ensure you can invariably keep your eyes for the road. Extra safety kit could be specified on top-line Sport Nav models, including a traffic sign recognition system, adaptive lights and blind spot monitoring, enhancing its safety credentials significantly. Space is adequate, yet not class-leading. Enough space for 4, but boot is small. Is all of it style over substance? With more room inside than the usual 2, Mazda CX-3 practicality is the identical with other models on this hard-found class. The front seats are pushed out on the extremes and the car's width, both to boost room for people on top and help the view for all those behind, who incidentally sit 37 mm higher up. It doesn't feel by far the most spacious inside the segment, however neither will it be the largest for the outside either, and depending with your driving position possibly at a small squeeze for legroom inside back. There's no real shortage of headroom and shoulder space is adequate. Nevertheless, it does feel larger when compared to a Nissan Juke by way of example. The concern is that those who easily feel claustrophobic may struggle inside the back with the CX-3, as models with privacy glass can seem to be quite cramped, especially due towards the small rear windows and low roofline. Boot space varies determined by model. This was the initial Mazda to come with a flexible and adjustable load floor due to the 350-liter boot space, and that is 95 liters larger compared to boot you'll see in its smaller sibling, each. As you'd hope, there's a 6040 split function, in case you have to carry large awkward loads, and those Sport Nav models equipped while using excellent Bose music system feature an additional speaker inside the boot which robs the complete figure of 63 liters. That means 287 liters, which can be smaller than many superminis. As desirable as being a top-spec Sport Nav might be, it's not much of a practical choice for growing families. Compact exterior dimensions mean placing the CX-3 about the road is very easy, plus with large door mirrors and several driver aids, you won't find it difficult to maneuver it into a space, either. The rear windows are smaller than average. Rear roof pillar right at the back in the car is pretty chunky, so it's the best thing it's not only a big car to squeeze into a tight space. The handy thing is the fact that it's barely longer when compared to a supermini. Nonetheless, it benefits from a rather raised driving position. This means it's exactly that little bit simpler to see beyond. The most disappointing feature from the CX-3 will be the boot on Sport Nav models. While regular versions possess a decent 350-liter boot and that is fairly average to the segment, that could be adjusted, which has a variable height floor, Sport Nav is robbed of space as a result of Bose subwoofer. This means those looking for practical family transport should rule out a top-spec model since you only receive a shallow load area, even though it's still fairly an easy task to access on account of a level loading lip.